Hi, vinyl community. It's Bill here again, and I'm jumping on a thread 1001 books, or maybe 1001 albums that you should hear before you die. Now, I think there's various editions, so they don't. I'm always interested in the ones that drop off the list. Or do you actually count up and see that there are only 1001? But yeah, thank you to Alan at Static Traveller, a wonderful member of the vinyl community. Yeah, and yeah, that was quite a challenge. That I love this subject, hence my channel name, Bill Vinyl Lists. So I've got this. I've got Rockfile, which I got in '75. And it had 100 albums you should, or 100 essential albums, I think it was. 100 essential rock albums, it says, but it's got Hank Williams' greatest hits. It's got the Yardbirds, Remember, Beach Boys' greatest hits, B.B. King live at the Regal. And yeah, you can see there's marks on the page there that I've ticked off when I've got an album that's in the list. But I have listened to some albums on that list and decided they're not for me. So yeah, going back to 1001 books, I thought it was quite interesting because it's, yeah, well, we have Charles Dickens in here, Little Woman, A Mill on the Floss, etc., etc. But if it hadn't been for that book, I probably wouldn't have read A Prayer for Owen Meany, which is a great book set around the time of the Vietnam War. A very intriguing book, that. And George Perec's Life, a User's Manual, which has a sort of 3-page story every 3 pages, and then goes on to be about I think it's around about 750 or 800 pages, and given me a lot of pleasure over the years. I can even dip into it and reread. Wonderful book. But yeah, one of the things that crossed my mind is that books like this give you, yeah, there's a lot of predictable ones in there, especially this one. And yeah, maybe some artists that are in there, and like this one, which, yes, I'm glad it's in there. I came across it via another route, but they are great ways of finding albums that might interest you. And yeah, Revolver, Pet Sounds, Sticky Fingers, some Neil Young album, etc., and even the Sex Pistols, they become a reference point so that you can have meaningful discussions with other music lovers that you find in a record store. And yeah, if the record store owner knows that you love Dark Side of the Moon or Breakfast in America, yeah, you might find things that are going to be in your area of interest, let's say. Enough rambling. So yeah, I thought I'd do this as a quick video. Now, as I said, the 100 greatest albums to own on vinyl. There was this one, Rolling Stones, 500 greatest albums. Even a supplement in a Sunday newspaper, 100 albums you need to own. But yeah, I guess, where are we? yeah, there's a couple there that, and yeah, some people there that you might be interested in, all-time box sets, etc. But I love this one, Dust and Grooves, Adventures in Record Collecting. And there are people showing their records that are in their collection. And yeah, this has been an interesting way to seek out some albums that are of interest. I think including one that's called Copulation Blues. And I've got that in my collection. And it's some of the most shocking lyrics, especially for things that were recorded in the 20s and 30s. So sex, drugs, rock and roll, yeah, it goes back through the centuries, I guess. And yeah, also in that list, this one's often mentioned. I think it's mainly I think every vinyl collector should have this one, especially for what you call it, the spinning angels when you look at the album on the turntable. Yeah, holograms, I think they're called. And yeah, a record that plays from the inside out, and on the other side, so depending where you drop the needle, you get either an acoustic intro or an electric guitar intro. Jack White's one of my all-time favorites. But yeah, let's go to the 1001 other or alternative albums that you should have in your collection, or not that you should hear before you die. Yeah, I thank Alan Static Traveller for the introduction to this heat. Yeah, not for me. I found a couple of the tracks were interesting, and then the third one, it was, sorry, Alan, hurting my ears. So, right, let's go for, I think, 5 or 6 vinyl, and I've got 2 CDs of great records that you should give a listen to that I haven't got on vinyl. But yeah, this one is great. This is the Mull Historical Society. In my mind, there's a room. And yeah, I have another of his albums called Loss, I think it's called. And it was reviewed as Hebridean Beach Boys. So yeah, this guy, I think, comes from Mull. But this album was, I like the artwork as well, was a collaboration. So he wanted authors and poets to describe the rooms of their childhood, and Colin McIntyre put music to it. So he had Nick Hornby, Jacqueline Wilson, Liz Lockheed, which I think is my favorite on the whole album. It's a track called Anaglypta, and it's like spoken verse about growing up in post-war Glasgow and getting a new home, a Scottish special home, and a bedroom of her own, etc. Very evocative. And then there's, I'm not sure, it must be his father or his grandfather, Angus McIntyre, has a poem, Memories of Mull, and his voice in the poem is just amazing. But yeah, there's My Bedroom Was My Rocket, and yeah, it's very interesting. So I'd suggest that you check that one out. And then, did I show Duck Rock? Yeah. Well, another one which showed Malcolm McLaren's love for sort of waltz, classical Johann Strauss type stuff. I love this cover as well. And the album Waltz Darling, Yeah, this is an alternative 1001 that you should listen to. The opening track is a mashup between Johann Strauss and I'm not sure if it's the elder or the younger, and Frankie Goes to Hollywood. And it's just a belter, really good. Interesting story about Johann Strauss. He was touring the States and must have been, yeah, 1800s maybe, I'm not sure. But people wanted a lock of his hair. So instead of giving his own hair, he would give the hair from his dog. And the poor dog was sort of almost bald by the time it was the end of the tour. But yeah, tracks like Algernon's Simply Awfully Good at Algebra and Something's Jumping in Your Shirt. Really great tracks, these. Then, yeah, did I mention my love of Jack White? This is a great, well, triple album actually. And you can see recording equipment there. So this was all recorded on machinery that comes from, I think, about 1928, 1925 maybe, and the early days of cutting records. But this is a brilliant compilation. It's got one mic, or what? Yeah, one mic by Nas. We've got On the Road Again by Nas. We have The Cuckoo Bird by Steve Martin of Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. He's a great banjo player with Eddie Brickell. And yeah, there's some Jack White on here as well as the Hawaiians and Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard, as well as Rhiannon Giddens. Sort of bits of Americana, bits of sort of uh, Americana mixed up with hip hop. Yeah, High Water Everywhere by Taj Mahal. Yeah, and Beck does 14 Rivers, 14 Floods with a nice backing of a gospel choir. And then absolutely love this. This is a great, some of these, yeah, I think the 1001 records, I think it started with Frank Sinatra's Songs for Swinging Lovers. But yeah, there's some great music prior to the 1950s, and it's not all classical either, but this is a Chicago blues compilation. And the thing I love about it is it's got Tampa Red and the Chicago Five, and Tampa Red's on vocals, guitar, and kazoo. And the sound of the kazoo is just fabulous. So, and then there's Washboard Sam and his Washboard Band. You can guess which instrument he maybe plays. But yeah, this is maybe not Chicago's blues as you imagine it. So it's not Muddy Waters. That's a couple of decades after that. But yeah, really like this, and certainly should appear on an alternative 1001 albums you should hear before you die. Yeah, I think it's always good to speak to people about music. My art teacher, he gave me a recommendation for this band, the Presidents of the United States of America. I think it's a self-titled album, and this is sort of punk rock from 1995, so 30 years old, but it sounds fresh as a daisy, and I love this. There's Bol Vivo, Peaches. They do a cover of the MC5's Kick Out the Jams. There's Back Porch, yeah, sort of bluesy punk. So some of the tracks are quite slow, yeah, slow in tempo, but their musicianship on it is amazing. Yeah, never rule out listening to some classical music. And I love Philip Glass's violin concerto. I think it's his second movement is just heavenly violin, heavenly violin, just slow and dreamlike, and yeah, really nice piece of classical music. So yeah, two CDs with music. Yeah, CDs are records as well, tapes, cassettes, 8-track. They're all records because they're a record of a recording studio session. So, hope you found that interesting. I think there's still a place in the world for books like these. I am addicted to them. I'm always counting up how many out of 1001 I actually own. Usually, whatever book it is or magazine, I probably maybe have a quarter to a third of the album shown. There's a place for these. As Alan suggests, maybe some of the picks are a bit obvious, but again, if I didn't have the obvious ones on Rockfile 3 that I bought in 1975, I think, would I have been checking out Sly and the Family Stone? Would I have been checking out Buffalo Springfield? These were books that were very important before the age of streaming, before the internet, when, yeah, music press was very important, the NME, Sounds, Melody Maker, etc. The Rolling Stone magazine. But yeah, so it's through books like this that I've discovered a lot of music. And yeah, my collection wouldn't have grown without these type of things. I wouldn't have come across the Lemonheads or Jack White or the White Stripes without things like that. Enough rambling, Bill. Stuart, I hope you're still watching. And yeah, interested in your comments. Bye just now.